From 1922 to 1936, Hans Ulrich Rudel gone to rudimentary school and a humanistic tall school, which he graduated with. He joined the Hitler Youth in 1933. After taking off school and completing his obligatory labor benefit, he joined the Luftwaffe on December 4, 1936 as a cadet. He did his fundamental preparing at the Wildparkquartier Discuss Fighting School close Berlin. In June 1938 he was advanced to senior sailor and exchanged to Graz Thalerhof for plunge warrior pilot preparing. On December 1, 1938 he prepared as an spectator at the observation school in Hildesheim. Rudel was advanced to lieutenant on January 1, 1939 and exchanged to Prenzlau as an spectator on June 1, 1939. At the conclusion of December 1938 he too completed spectator preparing. As a surveillance pilot, he took portion within the Clean campaign as portion of long-distance surveillance Gather 121 and earned his EK2 here on November 10, 1939. On Walk 2, 1940, his ask for an exchange to the Stuka pilots was allowed. Rudel was exchanged to I Group of Stuka Squadron 168, which was based in Cannes, France at the time. In April 1941 he went to Greece with the first bunch of Stuka Squadron 2. From June 1941 he flew over Russia and sank the Russian ship Marat, amid a mission over Leningrad on September 23, 1941. In encourage operations he sank a cruiser and a destroyer. Within the winter of 1941 he was granted the Trophy of Honor for extraordinary accomplishments within the Discuss War, the German Cross in Gold, and on January 6, 1942 the Knight's Cross. On Eminent 15, 1942 Rudel was commander of a squadron within the 3 Stuka Squadron 2. On February 10, 1943 he was the primary to fly the 1000th faux flight in Russia. On April 1, 1943 he was advanced to captain. Within the same month he sank 70 Russian landing make at the Kuban bridgehead, for which he was granted the Oak takes off on April 14, 1943. After Rudel had as of now spoken to the 3 bunch of Stuka Wing 2, he got to be its commander on September 19, 1943. On October 9, 1943 he completed his 1,500 faux flight. On October 28, 1943 Rudel was able to crush his 100th adversary tank, for which he was granted the Swords of the Knight's Cross of Oak clears out on November 25, 1943. On Walk 1, 1944 he was advanced to major. On Walk 20, 1944, Rudel chosen on his 8th adversary flight that day approximately 50 kilometers behind the front when assaulting a bridge close Yempol to choose up a team that had been shot down and fly domestic. But his plane got stuck within the mud and the protect mission fizzled. His longtime radio administrator, Oberfeldwebel Erwin Henschel, with whom he had completed over 1,400 faux flights, suffocated whereas swimming over the Dnieper. Rudel himself was shot within the Bear whereas swimming over the Dniester. After 50 kilometers through faux landscape, Rudel at last come to the German lines once more. On Walk 27, 1944, Major Rudel was able to annihilate 17 Russian faux tanks. The taking after day he was able to destroy 9 Russian tanks once more and expanded the overall number of tanks crushed to 202. On Walk 29, 1944 he was granted the Precious Stones. After 2,000 faux flights on June 1, 1944, Rudel scored his 300th tank slaughter on Admirable 6, 1944. He was moreover granted the brilliant Frontflugspange with Precious Stones. On Eminent 1, 1944, Rudel got to be squadron commander of Stuka Squadron 2, and on September 1, 1944 he was advanced to lieutenant colonel. On January 1, 1945, Ulrich Rudel was granted the brilliant oak clears out with swords and jewels for the Knight's Cross of the Press Cross. He was the as it were beneficiary of this grant. On January 16, 1945, he was granted the Hungarian Gold Award for bravery. On February 8, 1945, Rudel was genuinely injured within the leg by a 4 cm fire amid in faux flight. His heavy armament specialist, squadron specialist Dr. Gaterman spared Rudel's life by tying off his leg. This was followed by confirmation to the most military SS unit close silo, where the lower right leg had to be excised. After that, Rudel was taken to the Bahnhof Zoo Healing Center in Berlin. On April 20, 1945 he returned to the Stuka Wing 2, where he once more took over the post of squadron commander. On May 8, 1945, Rudel and his squadron, consisting of 3 Ju-87s and 4 FW-190s, flew west to the American-held airfield near Kitzingen. Upon landing, the landing pilots destroyed all but one of their machines to render them unusable. After his release from captivity in April 1946, Rudel ran a haulage company in Coesfeld. In 1948 he emigrated to Argentina. He reached Italy via Switzerland. In Rome he procured a forged Red Cross passport with the alias Emilio Meyer, and landed in Buenos Aires on a flight from Rome on June 8, 1948. In Argentina, Rudel founded the Campaign Works in Buenos Aires, an aid organization for Nazi war criminals. In addition to war criminals who had fled to Argentina, the group also supplied Nazi criminals imprisoned in Europe, such as Rudolf Hess and Karl Donitz, with food packages from Argentina and by paying legal fees, among other things. On May 8, 1945, Rudel and his squadron, consisting of 3 Ju-87s and 4 FW-190s, flew west to the American-held airfield near Kitzingen. Upon landing, the landing pilots destroyed all but one of their machines to render them unusable. After his release from captivity in April 1946, Rudel ran a haulage company in Coesfeld. In 1948 he emigrated to Argentina. He reached Italy via Switzerland. In Rome he procured a forged Red Cross passport with the alias Emilio Meyer, and landed in Buenos Aires on a flight from Rome on June 8, 1948. In Argentina, Rudel founded the Campaign Works in Buenos Aires, an aid organization for Nazi war criminals. In addition to war criminals who had fled to Argentina, the group also supplied Nazi criminals imprisoned in Europe, such as Rudolf Hess and Karl Donitz, with food packages from Argentina and by paying legal fees, among other things. According to the British Secret Service, he also had contacts with the Naumann Circle, an association of National Socialists headed by the former State Secretary in the Reich Ministry of Propaganda Werner Naumann, who wanted to infiltrate the FDP. In the 1953 federal election campaign, Rudel ran as the top candidate of the far-right German Reich Party, DRP. In 1960, the Attorney General conducted investigations into secret bundling against Rudel. After the 1973 Pinochet coup, Rudel settled in the Colonia Dignidad in Chile. In South America, Rudel was foreign representative for several German companies, including the Siemens Group. In 1973 he also acted as an intermediary in economic projects between Argentina and Paraguay. This was about the dam project Yacyretá. At Rudel's funeral in 1982, an uproar broke out when 2 Phantom fighters from the German Air Force flew over his grave as a tribute.